Jennings again. The aim of the game. Mr. Pemberton Oakes, headmaster of Linbury Court School, put his foot down on the subject of space invaders and did his best to turn the attention of his boys to the more sensible topic of caring for the world in which they lived. A project based on ecology would be a better way of spending their free time than this ridiculous nonsense about aliens from outer space which had become so popular during the past few weeks. However, the popularity of this pastime was showing no sign of abating, judging by the enthusiasm for yet another game of make-believe which, at that moment, was taking shape in the corridor outside Form 3 classroom. As usual, the organizer was Jennings, a lively 11-year-old whose plans to brighten up the routine of boarding school life so often ended in disaster. "Derbyshire and I and some of you lot can be little green men from Mars," he announced to a group of third-formers. "You other lot can be patriotic Earthmen who've got to capture us before we hold the Earth to ransom." "Has it got to be Mars?" complained his friend Derbyshire. "It's always Mars when you're making up the rules. Couldn't we come from Planet X for a change?" "Planet X? Where's that?" "Nobody really knows," Derbyshire explained. "Astronomers are pretty sure it's about somewhere, but it's so far away that they can't quite make out where it is." "Fair enough," Jennings agreed, and for the next 20 minutes the corridors echoed to the clatter of juvenile footwear as defenders and attackers chased one another round the building. The rules of the game were simple, and the basic aim was clear. As well as avoiding arrest, the spaceman's task was to seize and make off with the geographical globe of the world, normally kept in Form 3 classroom. Whichever side held this trophy in its possession held the world in its power. Derbyshire crouched behind a laundry basket on the first-floor landing, peering down through the banisters at the open door of Form 3 classroom on the floor below. In his imagination, he had just arrived from Planet X in the outer reaches of the galaxy. Here, on the landing, he was safe. His daydream was cut short by Jennings racing along the landing and skidding to a halt beside the laundry basket. "Hey, Darby, I can capture the trophy if I go right away," he said. "Venables has just gone rushing off after Bromwich and Martin Jones, and there's no one left on guard." There was no time to lose. Jennings slid down the banisters and scurried into classroom 3. The globe on the shelf by the window was within easy reach. Jennings lifted it down from its pedestal, then rushed from the room like a goalkeeper with the ball safely in his hands. Jennings ran across the playground, wondering what to do next. He had still got to get the globe safely upstairs to the first-floor landing before he could claim victory. But his luck was out. As he drew level with the sports pavilion, Venables, the opposing leader, leapt out from behind the cricket scoring box where he had been lying in wait. "Got you! You're under arrest!" Venables shouted, and clapped him on the shoulder. He held out his hand for the trophy. "Pass it over. It belongs to us again now." According to the rules, a prisoner could not break free so long as his captor was standing guard over him, but was entitled to escape if at any time he was not under supervision. Venables had foreseen this possibility and had come prepared. From his pocket he produced the padlock and chain used for securing his bicycle. He looked round for a suitable place to tether his prisoner and decided to chain him to a garden roller standing beside the scoring box. "Hey, you're not going to leave me stranded out here," Jennings objected. His captor smiled and twisted the chain round the iron frame connecting the roller's axle to its handle. He wound the rest of the chain round his prisoner's wrist and secured the makeshift handcuffs with his padlock. "I'll come back and set you free when the game's over," he said. "Honestly." Venables picked up the globe and trotted back towards the side door. As he went, it occurred to him that the plastic sphere would have made a useful football. He tossed it into the air, heading and catching it as he went along. He dribbled it along the path. Soon the globe was looking the worse for wear. Streaks of mud obscured the continent of Australia. Wet footmarks were visible across most of Europe, and much of Antarctica was obscured by the slime and wet soil of a drainage ditch. He was approaching the side door just as it was opened from within, and Mr. Wilkins, his form master, came out to enjoy a breath of fresh air before afternoon school. Mr. Wilkins was a large man with a powerful voice and a limited supply of patience. Though fond of the boys whom he taught, he looked upon most of their activities with suspicion, for he could never understand the way in which their minds appeared to work. Here was a case in point. Never, in his wildest dreams, had Mr. Wilkins felt an urge to dismantle an expensive globe of the world and play football with it. The master was dumbstruck with disbelief at this mind-boggling behaviour. When his mind had ceased to boggle and the power of speech returned, he shouted, "Venables! What in the name of thunder are you playing at?" The culprit gave a guilty start. Nothing, sir," he stammered. "Well, nothing much, really. You see, we were playing this game about invaders from Planet X, only instead of—"
Oh! Space invaders! I might have known!
Mr. Wilkins almost danced with exasperation, and his mind began to boggle again.
I have had enough of this stupid nonsense. How you could have the audacity to remove an expensive item of school equipment from the classroom is beyond me to understand. Look at the state it's in.
Venables took out his handkerchief and wiped a few smears of mud from the Atlantic Ocean. He flicked a wet leaf and a small worm cast from the coastline of Canada. He couldn't see that he'd done much damage.
I shall get the headmaster to deal with this, Mr. Wilkins went on. Go and report to him at once.
The thought of Jennings, chained to the roller, flickered into Venables' mind. "Oh, but sir, I can't go yet. I've just thought of something."
"What do you mean, can't go? I've just told you to go."
"Yes, I know, and there's something I've got to do first. It won't take a minute, honestly, sir."
"You'll do nothing of the sort,"
Mr. Wilkins retorted, angry that his orders should be questioned.
"Go and report yourself this minute."
"Oh, but, sir—"
"Don't argue with me, boy. You heard what I said."
He gestured towards the side door.
"In you go, sharpish now. Tell the headmaster what you did, and don't you dare come back into school until he's dealt with you."
Venables sighed and made his way indoors. He was sorry about Jennings, of course, but there was nothing he could do about it. For some minutes after Venables had left him, Jennings stood tethered to the roller. First he tried to squeeze his hand free from the bond round his wrist, but it was too tight, and he only succeeded in grazing his knuckles on the chain. Soon he became alarmed, for he heard the distant sound of the bell for school ringing from inside the building. What should he do? If he couldn't escape from the roller, he would have to take it with him. Leaning with all his weight on the handle, he pushed the roller away from the scoring box onto the path. Mr. Wilkins strode briskly into Form 3 classroom, where his form were waiting for him to start the geography lesson.
"All right, sit up straight and keep your wits about you," he boomed. "This afternoon we're going to have a look at what's been happening in the rainforests of the world."
He ran his eye round the room. 2 desks were unoccupied.
"Where's Jennings?" he demanded.
Nobody knew. "Venables isn't here either, sir," Temple reported.
"I know all about Venables," said Mr. Wilkins. "The stupid boy will have something to answer for when the headmaster gets back."
He placed a pile of press cuttings on the master's desk, cleared his throat, and began.
"The destruction of forests in many parts of the world has become a serious problem. In times past, however, it was not only tropical countries that were thickly covered by forests. Indeed, at one time our own country was so densely packed with trees that it is claimed that a squirrel could have made its way from what we now call Sherwood Forest to Land's End without having to set foot upon the ground. The lesson continued, and Form 3 listened with close attention, except for Derbyshire, whose one-track mind was still brooding over the tree-top journey of the wandering squirrel. Why did it want to leave Sherwood Forest, he wondered? Were the nuts better in Cornwall? And how did it know which way to go? If it took a wrong turning, it might end up at Beachy Head instead of Land's End. And in spite of all the trees, it would have to make some fantastic jumps over rivers and things, unless, of course, it— "Derbyshire!" Mr. Wilkins' voice shattered the daydream, and the boy came to with a start. "Yes, sir?" "You weren't listening. I could tell by the look on your face." Oh, I was listening, sir." "Then what was I saying?"
You were telling us about a squirrel, sir. The one that went to Land's End." Mr. Wilkins tut-tutted in exasperation.
"Well, that wasn't a real squirrel, you silly little boy."
"You said it was, sir. You said it went from Sherwood Forest."
"That was just an example of what could have happened. A hypothetical case."
"A what case, sir?"
"Hypothetical. Imaginary. Not true in actual fact."
Derbyshire was disappointed. He felt deeply attached to his hypothetical squirrel. Mr. Wilkins had no right to go about saying things that weren't true. But Mr. Wilkins' intention of getting down to work was again thwarted, for at that moment a clank, rumble, and thump broke on the air from outside the window. Mr. Wilkins strode across the room and threw the window wide.
"Jennings!"
he shouted with the full force of his lungs. The clanking ceased as the roller came to rest. "Yes, sir?"
"What in the name of thunder are you doing? Leave that thing alone and come indoors at once."
Jennings' voice floated back through the window. I can't, sir. I can't get free."
"Can't get free? What do you mean?"
Jennings raised his left arm, and the handle of the roller rose with it. "I'm tied up, sir. I can't get the chain off."
"You silly little boy! What on earth were you playing at?"
"Space Invaders, sir. You see, I was an alien from Planet X."
"Oh!"
An explosive sound like a compressed air tire pump burst from the master's lips. He had heard more than enough about Planet X for one afternoon. By the time Jennings finally arrived in the classroom, there were barely 5 minutes left for Mr. Wilkins' explanation of the havoc being wrought in the South American rainforests. Jennings Again was written and adapted by Anthony Buckeridge, read by Stephen Fry, and produced by Anne Hine.